I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mike Thaller. I am the president of PDA-CA, and I'm going to talk in just a little bit. But first, I want to introduce our moderator. Our moderator is Kenya Thaller, who is a loyal PDA/PDA-CA person and is absolutely brilliant and has done this before. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist and has a certification in primary care behavioral health. And I just lost my little script. Okay, and her motto is, it's time to take dysfunction out of politics. And to that I say amen. She is a valued community leader, bringing awareness to uplifting our Black community as well. So Kenya, why don't you take it away? Kenya, are you there?
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Kenya.
I think she is unmuted. Well, we're not off to a great technical start, but we'll be fine.
I'm not unmuted.
Now you are.
I hear you.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Mike, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for an opportunity to be here this afternoon. As you mentioned, my name's Kenya Thaller, and I'm down here in the unincorporated part of San Diego County. This is a wonderful time for us to get together and talk about the passionate, phenomenal, progressive values that we have. I'm excited to be in the midst of so many trailblazers and dedicated community members that are there to help empower our lives, but also save our lives. As you know, people are dying. We are in the midst of a pandemic with more people who need more medical attention than ever. This is a great opportunity for us to learn, listen, and also provide feedback so we could be the best California and nation ever. I'm going to keep my comments very brief, but it's important for us to remember to participate, stay engaged, get educated, and also listen to the great words of our speakers here today. We have a full agenda. As I mentioned, I'll be brief. And what I'd like to do is introduce Alan Minsky, Executive Director of PDA and Healthcare for All. Alan is the Executive Director of the Progressive Democrats of America. Previously, Alan was the longtime Program Director at KPFK Radio Los Angeles and the National Program Coordinator for Pacifica Radio, and launched the initial podcast for The Nation and Jacobin Magazine. He's written 4 books on American sports history and is a frequent contributor to The Nation. Please help me welcome Mr. Minsky.
Thank you so much, Kenya Thaller. Those were very eloquent words at the top, because you absolutely hit the nail right on the head about being the best California and the best society we can have in this country. And the relationship of our subject today and national health care, single payer Medicare for all in the United States of America. For people who are unfamiliar with Progressive Democrats of America who are on the call, we are the organization, the sole national organization that drafted then obscure senator from Vermont to run for president, Senator Bernie Sanders, and to run as a Democrat. We launched the Run Bernie Run campaign. We decided to commit to it in 23, launched it in early 2014. And we pressured Senator Sanders, and he acknowledges that without PDA, the Sanders campaign wouldn't have happened. Well, what did the Sanders campaign do? It brought the term Medicare for all into the national consciousness like it had not been previously. And it has now got tremendous support, majority support across the country, overwhelming support among Democrats. And yet at the federal level, And there is no doubt for all that we will hear this in this hour, that as great as it is to implement in California, for all that we're starting to learn about modern money and how the federal government and sovereign currency and all those terms that are coming into a little bit more common parlance and economic theory tells us it would be easiest to do it at the federal level, because they're not going to run into any kind of debt problems to pay for the program at the federal level. But we do not have the votes there. And we do not have support for the progressive agenda in the totality of federal politics, as we know, and up on Capitol Hill and even in the White House, that we do here in the largest state in the country. And this largest state in the country has such a huge tax base that, yes, it, more than any other state in the country, can implement a program like single-payer universal healthcare in the country. The progressive politics that are the wind in the sail of the national Medicare for all movement are more broadly embraced in California than they are nationally. Our northern neighbors, we all know, have a universal single-payer healthcare system, free at the point of service for basic medical care in Canada. That came about when it was initiated in a province and then spread to other provinces. So follow that logic. And what we have here in front of us with AB 1400 can transform healthcare as we know it in the United States of America. And let's not be shy about what healthcare in the United States of America is. It is inadequate. It is borderline barbaric. You tell people from other prosperous industrialized countries about the US healthcare system, they cannot believe it. When they are sick or they are in need of medical advice, they simply go to a doctor. They don't have to worry about the cost of it or the availability of it. The implications of that for public health, so resonant as we're 2 years into a pandemic in this country, cannot be overstated. So today we have joining us on this call, thanks to the incredible work of the team at PDA-CA, we have the 3 assembly people who are introducing the single-payer healthcare bill and have introduced and will be debated in this California State Assembly in January, just a couple months away, folks, even closer than that. A bill that can change US healthcare and change immediately California healthcare. We have the author of the bill joining us as well, Commissioner Comsti. And today is a day where we are going to commit PDA nationally, and I can't speak for PDA-CA, but I understand this to be the case, a complete commitment to pushing for single-payer universal health care here in California, which will revolutionize, in my opinion, healthcare in the United States of America. And so to finish, I just want to say what this means for everybody on the call. Everybody, and this maybe doesn't pertain to, say, Assemblyman Lee, Assemblyman Santiago, and Assemblyman Kalra. Everybody else on the call has to figure out who their California Assembly person is, know who that person is, right? As I certainly do. It's Wendy Carrillo for me. Contact for me, Wendy Carrillo's office, for you, whoever your assembly office is, and demand that they support AB 1400, okay? And be prepared to put pressure on your state senators and pressure on Governor Gavin Newsom and demand that California be what California is supposed to be, the state that leads the way and brings to the United States of America a humane and cost-efficient and just absolutely morally correct, compared in sharp contrast to what we have today, a healthcare system to this state and then to spread across the country. And it begins with support and passage of AB 1400. This will lift American politics and American society like nothing that has happened in our time to date, folks. So learn who your assembly person is, get ready to call them and demand that they support AB 1400. And with that, thank you to everybody in PDA-CA. Back to you, Kenya.
Thank you so much, Alan. Great words of inspiration. And it's important for us all to know what assembly district we live in, who our state senators are. And coming from San Diego, I'm in AD 71, one of the most conservative area in San Diego County, along with State Senate District 38 and Congressional District 50. Daryl Issa is my congressperson. Before I say anything else, I would be remiss if I didn't introduce our local president, Mr. Mike Thaller. Mike Thaller is the president of PDA California, which is part of the Progressive Democrats of America family of progressive organizations that focus on California state level politics and issues. He became active in California in 2003 when George W. Bush was a threat to becoming reelected. It's also important to know, besides working on many campaigns throughout the years, he was a member of the San Diego County Democratic Party, including several years on their executive board as Director of Media Relations. He has been a CDP delegate and executive board member since 2004, serving as a committee co-chair, the vice chair, and chair of the CDP Progressive Caucus for 8 years, and he ran for controller of the CDP in 2018. I am also honored to be a member of the executive board representing 8071 along with Mike Thaller, and he has showed me the way. So thank you so much. I'd like to publicly acknowledge your leadership, but most importantly, your visibility in the community and engaging people of all levels of interest in politics and making this a safe space. So thank you so much, Mike. And if you'd like to add a few extra words.
Well, there's almost nothing left for me to say. Thank you. That was very generous and kind of you. I would like to explain a little bit about PDA-CA. PDA California is what it stands for, is that PDA focuses on national issues and candidates. PDA-CA focuses on California and even local candidates and issues. This particular issue is both national and California. And the theory here is that if we can get it done in California, then maybe it can get done in other states and then Congress itself. I was born and raised in Missouri, and I know that as a non-California, back when I was a non-Californian, I was a little bit offended when the California people were telling me what to do. But in this case, we're not telling anyone what to do. We're not smarter than anybody. We just happen to be bigger than everyone and be more progressive than any other state. We do have a lot of people who have joined this meetings from around the country. So please understand that we don't think, well, most of us don't think we're better than anybody else. So with that, I'd like to pass it back to Kenya to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you again for this opportunity to be here today. Next, I'll introduce Assembly Member Alex Lee from AD 25. He was elected in November 2020 to represent California's 25th Assembly District, which includes the Alameda County communities of Fremont and Newark and the Santa Clara communities of San Jose, Santa Clara, and Milpitas. Also a co-introducer of AB 1400 and dedicated progressive Democrat. Good afternoon, Assembly Member Lee.
Hey, good afternoon, Progressive Democrats. I am very proud to be joining you all virtually. I am on the road right now between district events, so I apologize about that. But I am Alex Lee. I'm the state assembly member for the 25th Assembly District, which is in northern Santa Clara County and southern Alameda County. So if I am your representative, I am got you covered when it comes to CalCare. But it is really, really important that we have your mobilization and all your efforts, because coming up in less than 2 months, well, just about 2 months in January, we will be at the collision course to finally get AB 1400 CalCare heard. For so long, for a whole year, basically, the bill has been stalled. It is being pushed on every bureaucratic hurdle, but we have to make all our voices heard and say enough is enough. We need to have a vote. We need to have a hearing about it, because as you most already know, in the California Democratic Party, it is official part of the party platform to support universal single payer health care. It is already established amongst the party electorate, And of course, then the natural question becomes, why is our Democratic ultra supermajority not acting upon that will? And that's because there is a lot of money on the line. The vested private healthcare industries, the people that are vested and make a lot of money on the status quo, don't want to see a more cost-effective public system created where we are now having access to healthcare. Now, you're going to hear a lot of arguments constantly about why we can't do it, where we're not going to pay for it. But I have to remind you that nationally every year there's $81 billion of medical debt out there. And 40% of Americans cannot afford a $400 medical emergency or $400 emergency bill one way or the other. And so our system, I tell people all the time, is we are already paying for it. We're paying for it in high copays and high premiums. We're paying for it in people dying because they are not seeking preventative healthcare or seeking healthcare, they could be doing it. And just because they have coverage or insurance does not equal necessarily have healthcare. We have made a huge step in this country, obviously making sure more people have health insurance, but Americans through and through want actual health care. They don't want just health insurance. No one, not that I have met, no one is really tied to their healthcare agents or their insurance agents. So I think they're much more tied to their doctors and their physicians. And that's what the CalCare is empowering us to do. We're empowering us to have truly in the public domain a way to deliver healthcare for everyone. Dental, eye care, general health and mental health. We need to have all of that. And as the pandemic has proved, our system, which is heavily reliant on employment-based healthcare, doesn't work. When there is a rapid unemployment event like a pandemic or a disaster that happens, people lose their healthcare, and unfortunately, a lot of people lose their lives. And this should not be the case in the wealthiest country on the history of the planet of the Earth, or should it be in the wealthiest state in the Union. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. And if we are able to win the battle here against private, very powerful healthcare industry special interests, we can have that giant reverberation across the country and perhaps even across the world, because there is so much on the line right here. That's why there are so many forces trying to push us down and make sure we don't pass AB 1400. But that's why we need your support. We need you to contact folks in your community, your family, your friends, your coworkers, everyone who's been interested in this. Because honestly, I think everyone would be interested in having free healthcare, and make sure their voices are heard, but heard frequently. I would really like to challenge folks on this call to make sure you contact your representatives once this month, another time next month, and every time you can every week until we have that hearing, to make sure that even like members like myself who are already co-authors, and we have a really healthy list of co-authors on the state Senate and the state Assembly, to make sure we're hearing from you, because we want to make sure that when a lot of members are taking tough votes, they also know that the community's got them. I think that's just as important as communicating to members who are on the fence or have not made up their mind yet about single-payer universal healthcare. So it's important to keep having up that support, and we really need you all mobilized and supporting this fight, because as you'll hear from the other joint authors, Assemblymember Miguel Santiago and our main author, Assemblymember Kalra, it is a really long, tough road ahead, and we're going to need everyone involved to make sure we get universal health care, because there is, again, no reason why on the wealthiest economy in the world, we cannot make sure that everyone has the basic provision of healthcare. And that's all going to be happening if we have everyone in this fight together, and we're going to take on some of the most powerful interests in the world, and I think we can come out of it victorious. So thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate all your advocacy. Keep it up. Keep making people uncomfortable and pushing the envelope, and we're going to get it done.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Lee. He mentioned so many things that are critical, but also things that are often left out that people need, such as dental, eye care. There are more and more needs that we can handle early, will save money, but most importantly, will save lives. We need people to contact their representatives. We need each of you to contact your representatives. It would be great if you could get 5 more people to contact the representatives and spread the word, because we don't want anyone else to die. We don't want anyone else going to the emergency room because they didn't have the money to go and they waited. I have a background in primary care behavioral health. Too many people want prevention, but unfortunately, they don't have financial means to go early. going to the doctor early save lives. So let's make sure AB 1400 passes, because all of us deserve quality healthcare now. Next on our agenda, we have Assembly Member Ashkara 8027. And he represents 8027, which encompasses approximately half of San Jose and includes all of the downtown. He was first elected in 2016, becoming the first Indian American to serve in the California legislature in state history. Definitely a trailblazer. And to paraphrase Bernie Sanders, he introduced the damn bill. Without further hesitation, please help us welcome Assembly Member Kalra.
He seems to have left the meeting or fallen off the meeting.
That's okay. I'm sure he'll be back soon. What we can do is continue the agenda unless one of our committee members has some words they'd like to share in the interim. That's okay.
Erika, did you want to talk about maybe your call to action real quick, and we can mention your call to action?
There we go. Hi.
Hi.
Everybody can hear me okay? I am so excited for this town hall. I am crazy about CalCare. This bill, AB 1400, written by the badass nurses, is a badass bill. Carmen Comsti. This is an incredible bill. We so appreciate the nurses and you guys for leading this charge like you did last time and like you are now. So what makes this bill so incredible, we've had, I think, 6 single payer bills here in California. But there are 2 things that make this bill the best single payer bill in California so far is because, number one, like Pramila Jayapal's Medicare for All bill, HR 1976, AB 1400 closes the HMO ACO loophole, making this bill truly a single payer bill. So that is super important. And number 2, AB 1400 intentionally addresses healthcare disparities. It intentionally addresses these disparities by prioritizing resources to underfunded rural and urban communities. And it integrates culturally competent care into provisions. So there's so many great things that have already been said about this bill, but if you are a single payer nerd like me, and I have a feeling a lot of you on here are, if you or when you read the bill, you will see that AB 1400 is not just a healthcare bill. You will see when you read this bill, it is a housing bill. It is a racial justice bill. It is a jobs bill. It is an environmental bill. This bill is a human rights bill. And it is a bill that is only going to pass if we, the people throughout the state of California, mobilize and demand that our legislators pass this bill. We know all the obstacles against us. So with that, it's up to us. We have to do this. So we've got so many, the nurses have a lot of calls to action. But one thing, since we have a little time, One of my favorite calls to action is we have a letter that you can automatically send to your assembly member. So if you guys have your cell phones and you want to pull them out and type bit.ly, bit.ly, CalCare letter 2, the number 2, ASM. So bit.ly, bit.ly / CalCare letter 2 ASM. If you want to pull out your phones right now, do that. You will see that you type in your name, your number, your address. It'll pop up your a pre-written letter to your specific assembly member, and it basically says pass CalCare, and you press the send button. So if you guys want to do that right now and put a thumbs up on your screen, that would be amazing. Along those lines, the nurses, CNA, they've got postcards. You can sign up to send postcards. Another fun way to engage your assembly members. And I think Erika is going to be dropping the links to these actions in the chat. So you can sign up to send postcards through the nurses. On November 15th, CNA is hosting a commission prep meeting. Again, these links, I believe, are being dropped in the chat. And then CNA has some phone banks coming up. One on Tuesday, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. And then Tuesday, November 23rd, Healthcare for All Los Angeles. We're sponsoring a CNA phone bank. That's coming up. And there are more phone banks, so you can always go to events.medicareforall.org to check those out. CNA is not doing in-person organizing at this time, but Healthcare for All Los Angeles has teamed up with DSA LA, and we are crowd canvassing at farmers markets. So we're mostly, I see Paul Newman putting a thumbs up. We were at the Hollywood Farmers Market in Los Angeles this morning. And there are a couple of other farmers markets that we are doing. And basically, to access all of the CNA actions and Healthcare for All Los Angeles actions, we have a toolkit. You can go to bit.ly, bit.ly /HCALA toolkit. We've got the nurses toolkits there. We've got our calendar there. We got everything you could want to do for CalCare there. So again, that's bit.ly HCALA toolkit. So I don't know how we're doing on time, or if you want me to keep going, because I got more stuff. I can keep talking about this.
Okay, I would like for you to go in just a moment, but before you give us more words of wisdom, I'd like to share a little bit about your bio, very briefly.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Erika. She is a proud mom of Jack and James, director, Healthcare for All Los Angeles, member of White People for Black Lives, and currently serves on Black Lives Matter Los Angeles People's Budget Committee, was president of Pacific Palisades Democratic Club from 2017 through 2020, and twice elected assembly delegate to the California Democratic Party in 2017 and 2019, and is a Democratic socialist. Thank you so much, Erika, and please continue to give us more inspiring words.
Thank you, Kenya. And, I'd like to call out, I'm director along with Maureen Cruz. She's also director of Healthcare for All Los Angeles. We have our co-chairs, Bronwyn Major, Chang Sim Lim, Gina Harris. And we're also working a lot with Feel the Burn in San Fernando Valley. So we're really partnered up with some amazing organizations. We're all working in solidarity. In fact, they have, it's called the CalCare Solidarity Project, which is a great, think of it as a photo petition. So I just really want to say, drop our toolkit again, because all of San Fernando Valley's, all of the nurses, all of our stuff, DSA LA Health Justice Committee, you can find all of that at bit.ly HCALA toolkit. And so, yeah, I mean, like Nina Turner says, right? It's always impossible until it's done. And this is going to take people power. As it was mentioned before, the medical industrial complex has pretty much paid off everybody. I want to point out that the author, Kalra, and Alex Lee, they are the two members of the California legislature that don't take any corporate money. So we are in good hands with this bill, with the author that we have and the co-authors. Kalra has been working so hard on this bill. I mean, he is on everything and everywhere. I know he stepped away from this right now, but he is working really hard on this bill. So, yeah.
Oh, feel free to finish.
And that's pretty much it. Mobilizing people, that's what it's going to take. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming on here. Thank you, PDA, for hosting this, for all of our speakers that are on here. And, take the actions, mobilize, spread the word, work really hard on this. This is a game changer bill. This is how it was done in Saskatchewan, Canada. One province in Canada, Saskatchewan, they implemented single payer in their province. I think it was, Carmen might have to correct me, or Ryan, because I know Ryan knows everything. I think it was in 1962, and it led to the entire country having their single payer healthcare system. CalCare can be the Saskatchewan of the United States. We pass it here, and it was said earlier, the ducks are lined up here. We're the world's 5th largest economy. We have a Democratic supermajority. It is, in the Democratic platform. We can lead on this and lead the nation for Medicare for all and in the larger fight for healthcare justice. And and we know other states are doing amazing work as well. We work in solidarity with them. There's amazing work going on the national level as well. So whoever and however gets it there first, we're all for it. But I'm telling you, CalCare is an amazing bill, and I can't wait for Carmen to tell you more about it.
Thank you so much, Erika. You're representing Los Angeles, California very well, and definitely you are a leader for us to continue to follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also, please continue to look in our chat with the various links for our toolkits and letters to write to our elected officials. At this time, I'd like to introduce Assembly Member Miguel Santiago, who was first elected in November 2014 to represent the 53rd Assembly District, one of the most vibrant and diverse districts in California. 8053 encompasses Boyle Heights, downtown Los Angeles, Koreatown, Pico Union, and the surrounding areas. He has worked tirelessly on free community college education, homeless, low-income housing, freeing up banking regulations, and to give communities increased freedom on how to use our tax dollars. And he is a co-introducer of AB 1400. Thank you so much, Assembly Member Santiago, for joining us today.
Hey, how are you, friends? Erika and everyone else who's on. I made the first mistake in politics, which is not to thank one person, because then there's a lot of folks on here who I really should be thanking. Betty Allen and everybody else down the list who's showing up. I see Dorothy. Man, that mistake. But I do want to say thanks to everybody who's on here and for the hard work and the push that you've done to move California in a more progressive manner. And it was said that we did free community college, and we did, and we were able to do that a few years ago. And I like you, am very disappointed that the federal government is not moving forward with that nationwide, and what we could have done more to create debt-free education here in the state of California. I was asked today to talk a little bit about CalCare, but I want to say this about it, and I don't want to sugarcoat how difficult of a lift this will be. And I think probably will be one of the toughest bills to work on in this particular decade. But I will say that there is hope. And here's why. Every time we engage in one of these fights, we've seen the transformation, the possibility to move people in the direction where we want them. I, like you, was disappointed that the bill didn't move forward. I, like you, thought it would be easier to move forward because it's a very simple concept that we're pushing for in the bill. Number one, it's to create a CalCare system. So I want to say that for those who are new to what the bill does, and it creates a CalCare system that's basically a single payer system in the state of California. It would then create a board that would be, for a better word, the governing body to how it's implemented and how to apply for waivers and to do all the technical work that needs to be done to make this a reality. It would then align healthcare providers, because that needs to be done in order for this to have that change in transformation. And then it will also look for the funding source, which most of us already agree that we need to do and we need to fight for. But when we're presented to the general public, we already pay that amount, and people would be willing to come with us for a system that is better, for a system that doesn't discriminate, and for a system that provides quality healthcare for people over profit, and one that is free. I think we need to know that. But look, that's what the bill would do. Now we have an opportunity moving forward if we unite together and we help change minds, souls, and philosophies on people, that we could possibly get this through. And I'm saying possibly because it's going to depend on our hard work to move this through. So we all got to be absolutely committed into doing the work that we can, not just on the outside with the amazing movement of people in activism, but also engaging that outside work to the inside to be able to talk to those who make the decisions and joining us and trying to change those hearts and souls so that we can move forward with this. Now, I know some of you have been very, very engaged. There's a couple of things I think that would be helpful. There's not just one magic silver bullet. If it was, we would have already done it. But there's a number of things that I think that could be helpful. I know my colleagues will chime in on other ideas that they think will be helpful. One is setting up meetings with your local representatives to ask them to support, and if there are any concerns, to try to address those concerns. And coordinating with us, of course, because we're going to need to take a look at who's with us and who's not. The other one, too, is getting local municipalities or organizations to pass resolutions and support. I had the pleasure to work with some of the LA groups when the LA City Council passed a resolution in support of a single payer, and it is specifically AB 1400. And that's incredibly helpful because it's a tool in the tool shed when we go forward to show people that the support and the desire of the people are there. It's also doing the social media work that encourages people to support. Some of you have already engaged. I love this portrait picture thing that I got to get on board and do myself as well. But that is an amazing tool. Every time I'm tagged that, every time we retweet, we push forward, it just helps to spread the good news on some of the work that we do. And there's a number of things that we can continue to do. Actions, I think, are incredibly important. So we raise the awareness on this, editorials to the board. Now, it is true that the press will probably start to pay a little bit more attention as we get closer to the time to game time, as we like to call it in the legislature, because they generally tend not to pay too much attention until you're probably close up to game time. But to the degree that we could write op-eds, to the degree that we could involve ourselves with the local rags newspapers. I call them rags just because it's what we call our local newspapers that you can sometimes write a letter in. It's to the degree we could do letter writing campaigns to our legislature. It's the degree that we could show up to engage when there are rallies. And in fact, I'll credit a bunch of folks who did a rally in Hollywood where we showed up, and there was good people who showed up, but we could use more of that. We could use more people rallying. We could use building that social media movement. We could use all the different tools that we have at our disposal that are available under People Power. Now, look, we did a public banks bill a bit ago, and the reason I'm bringing that up is to tell you how hard it was to get done. But what we did on that one, and if you all recall several years ago, and most of you did engage, most of you participated on that, is we put People Power to the test. And it was one of the only bill that I know in the state legislature that got passed without a single paid lobbyist. And what we have the ability to do now is to sort of replicate that work, to meet with people individually, and to just be persistent and use the arguments that we have to get this through. Look, there's a national movement for this. We know that the public is with us. We need to take this to the streets, and we need to convince people that it's something we've got to do. I know that this is a friendly crowd as it relates to the bill, but I won't spend a lot of time trying to convince you on why we need to pass this. We already know it, right? We need a system that prioritizes people over profit when it comes to healthcare. We know that. We know the possibilities of what can get done when people have access to healthcare, from eye exams to dental checkups to heart checkups to everything that we know now is possible. And we're moving in that direction. I think the time is now. And if you take a look at the last legislature's budget, there is a momentum to give people more access to healthcare. We just got to make that link in people's mind between the momentum to give more access to healthcare and the leap into the CalCare program. Because if you take a look at the way the budget works, and I'm telling you this because it's instructive, the budget worked to expand healthcare access, particularly after a time when we went through the pandemic. So if you look at some of the changes in laws, from allowing forcing private insurance, I should say, to give healthcare to adult dependents, that's a big deal. From the changing of allowing folks who are undocumented to get healthcare coverage at 50 years of age and above, when that wasn't available before this last budget, that wasn't there. And if you take a look at the movement of investment into some rural communities as it relates to healthcare, and telecommunications, so people can receive healthcare. When you take a look at what we did on Every Woman Counts to allow for cancer checkups, I think that for mammograms and cancer screening for women who can't afford it, that's a movement in that direction. The reason I'm telling you this is because I think that helps, or at least when I'm talking to my colleagues, I say, look, the momentum's already there. Our state budget's moving in that direction. Let's take that leap from doing the small pieces and the crumbs to doing the big change that needs to happen in order to, so that we don't have to come back and continue to do this nickel and diming on every single thing that is important to getting a person whole. Instead, let's just take it on right now. Let's take care of the whole system, a single payer system that will provide quality healthcare to everyone. So I say that, and I'm going to repeat this, to arm you with some of the tools, some of the arguments necessary as it relates to what we are already moving in that direction. And I kind of feel that it is. And so that's important to understand, because in the argument of giving everybody quality healthcare, we've got to remind people that we're already moving that direction. We got to remind people that it would be cheaper over the long run. It would be better for people over the long run. And I heard Erika say that we're the 5th largest economy in the world. We are, and we should lead to give quality healthcare. There's more money in California and the ability to do things in it. And on top of it, we had a budget surplus. Traditionally, our budget is about, under good times, and we've been under good times over the last several years, about $230 billion. This last budget was give or take about $260 billion. We looked at historic deficits that didn't manifest themselves, and instead we're looking at historic surpluses. If you recall, the LAO in 2020, right when COVID hit, said that we would be hitting amazing budget deficits. And the reverse actually happened, because those who are the wealthiest made enormous amounts of money. And as a result of that, coupled with some federal investments, we now had a budget that was close to about $30 billion more than we ever anticipated. And from what I'm hearing, next year we should have a significant amount more money coming in. And if the stimulus package or the budget package that the federal government's pushing through, we're going to have an unprecedented amount of money potentially in the state budget where we could actually move the needle forward on doing some of the investment that we can to I would call radically reform a healthcare system into a CalCare system that actually does what it's supposed to do, which is give people quality healthcare. Now, I was asked to speak a little bit on what we can do, but I felt the need to talk a little bit about the technicalities because it's important to understand, I think, that when we're talking to people who are going to be voting on this, that we've got to move them in that direction by showing them that we're already doing it on top of the good work that I think some of my colleagues have already spoken about, that the people are already there with us. If there was ever an opportunity to change the healthcare system, that opportunity is today, and we've got a vehicle to be able to do it, and that's AB 1400. Now, somebody tagged in their time. I don't know if that meant time for me or not. So I'm going to continue talking unless I see that time come back up, which means then it's time for me to move on. David Wright says, yes, that must mean it's time. But I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. And I want to strike again that do not underestimate the power of people getting together and organizing to change the healthcare system. We did it with public banks. We've done it in a number of other areas. We did it with community colleges. I know we did it with criminal justice reform. We did it in other areas. So I'm going to ask you kindly, like you've been doing, to keep up the good work and help us to push California in a more progressive direction. And this is going to be key to doing that. So thank you all for letting me be on here. Mr. Wright, thank you for allowing me for a couple of extra seconds after you've had to put time up there twice. I really appreciate that. And I'd love the opportunity to come back and speak to you all. Thank you very, very, very much for allowing me to be on here today. This is personal to me as it is to you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member Santiago. Shortly, we're going to allow a couple of questions, but we also have Assembly Member Kalra on. Thank you so much for directing us as to what we could do and also discussing the importance of accessibility. And it's very important that we're reaching out to our urban communities, rural communities, as well as suburban communities, because everyone needs a voice. Everyone should have access. Everyone should have healthcare. No one else should die. It's important for us to reach out to those assembly members, even if they haven't voted our way in the past. It's important for us to talk to people now because our districts are struggling. Suicide is at an all-time high. Mental health is at an all-time high. We need everybody involved. But at this time, we're going to ask you to put a couple of questions in the chat. We don't have time for a lot, but we want to make sure we have our Assembly Member Kalra speak, and then we'll get to the questions.
Actually, really quick, Kenya.
Yes.
If anybody does have any questions, can you please direct those directly to me so that way I could go ahead and filter those to Kenya. And Assembly Member Santiago, I have got to tell you, you have been a very inspiring, coming and speaking, and we are already planning another event. So you better believe we're going to want to include you because you were very eloquent. One quick question that was directed at you, and I think you could give some feedback because of your history, is as we all know what happened to, and this is from Mike Thaller, we all know what happened with Assembly Bill 562, which was horrific. That's it's not funny when you say that's a gravestone that represented many lives that followed. How are we going to make this bill different on getting it passed? And how did this bill change in order to help us assert that value?
If we could have someone unmute, Assembly Member Santiago.
Yeah, and I'm hearing Mr. Kalra here, right? I heard his voice.
Yes.
I know that voice very, very well. So look, I'm happy to answer it very, very briefly, but I know that Mr. Kalra, by his voice, I can tell wants to answer that as well. But look, number one, I think this is a better written bill, and it's solid. And I know Mr. Kalra has been working on a funding plan, and that is going to be key to actually implementing this. So I think that's the short answer of it. I think what's different too, and let me just be upfront and direct with everybody here, is that California is in a very different place today. I mean, this isn't a new concept to Californians. This is a new concept to the legislature that's there. Now, the argument could be made that the legislature's passed some of these bills in the past, and that's true. It did. But when it was passed in the past, listen to me. When it was passed in the past, there was also a different legislature there. The new legislature, so to speak, had been members that got in the office, and Ashi can correct me if I'm wrong, but 2012 was the new set of legislators that would serve there for 12 years. And so they would term out in 2014. I don't recall single payer, and if I'm wrong, you'd have to correct me, but I don't recall single payer getting through the legislature during 12 and onward. But what I do know is that 562 was put in, obviously, and that was not successful in our House. But the other thing that I would say though is that introducing it now and moving it forward is the first time that this legislature is set, meaning you have all new members that didn't exist prior to 2012 because of the way the term limits are structured. So you have, so to speak, a new set of voices in the legislature that weren't present at the last time. So we have a different and unique opportunity. So that is also true. And let me just say that the last piece of it too, California has moved into more progressive than it was in years of past, because even rural areas that weren't voting on some of these issues or you would rule out years ago are not areas you would rule out for progressive movement today. And that was not the experience that I would say, or people would argue years ago. And Bernie hadn't come into town and took California as invincibly as he did in 2020. So that's also something to kind of take a look at. That's the very, very high level. And I know Osh probably wants to chime in on this if I read that correctly.
Assembly Member Clara.
But would you like me to make comments in general or just to answer this question?
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I think the administrators may have seen I was having some technical difficulties and had to jump off my internet on my laptop to come on my phone. And I think Miguel took both of our time, but I'll add a few more comments and just say, look, no one person, single payer healthcare would be the most transformative thing we can do in any one state and certainly in our nation. And AB 1400 can do that. But no one person can do it, and no one person can kill it. And the reason why I say that is because Osh Kalra cannot do this. I can't do it alone. Me and Miguel can't do it alone. Even all of us that are here can't do it alone. We need a much larger movement, both in the building amongst legislators and outside the building. And so I mentioned that because when we think about what happened before, we had an author that wasn't in conversation at all with the speaker. So it's a very different scenario now where we're in a lot of conversation and dialogue with the speaker's office. And so I mentioned that because it's very easy to say, oh, it's one person, it's Rendon, it's this person, it's that. It's no one person's fault. At the end of the day, there wasn't enough of a movement both in the building and out the building to move it forward, nor was there an answer to legitimate questions that colleagues had. You have to remember that any speaker represents not just their own personal views, they represent the entire caucus, right? So if we have a legislation that's coming forward where you have a majority of the caucus saying, wait a second, we have all these questions and answers that haven't been answered, what do you expect is going to happen? What do you expect is going to happen in terms of whether a bill is going to be put forward or not? I'm trying to do the work of making sure questions are answered, of talking to colleagues, but we have cost containment in this bill, which was not in 562, which is a major issue, a major gap. We are working on financing options for it as well. We're putting in the work. And so I mention that because putting pressure is absolutely critical on something of this issue, having a movement, but you've got to have a policy that works, and you've got to have financing that works. It's not one or the other. It's got to be all of it. I'm trying to work on all of it, because if we don't work on all of it, then this is not, legislation that's just working on one aspect of healthcare or one aspect of the environment. We're talking about an overhaul of our payment system, of our healthcare system. And so we know we're going to have major resistance that's going to create a lot of space to give out to folks to not support it, because they're already starting with arguments of why it can't happen and why it shouldn't happen. And one thing I will say, which Miguel was 100% right on, is that look at what we've done the last couple of years. We've expanded healthcare access to undocumented immigrants, expanded Medicare reimbursement rates, expanded healthcare across the board to our communities. But those incremental steps now are critically important. In other words, I'm not going to say, no, they were bad because someone's getting healthcare because of it. But what I will say is that my argument is that incrementalism is the case against incrementalism. Now, what does that mean? What that means is when we expand healthcare to parts of our community, it's good in terms of the outcome because someone has access, but we're not doing anything about the cost. So what we're doing is we're further creating an unsustainable system by increasing access under the current payment system. And so what you're doing is you're first of all competing with the private sector payment system. Secondly, you're creating a two-tier system because you know that people on Medi-Cal don't have the same access to healthcare as someone that has really nice private healthcare. So what we're doing is we're feeding into an inequitable system. Now, someone's getting healthcare because of it, fantastic. Are they getting the same quality or access to healthcare? That's the problem. And so if someone says that they're for immigrants, well, you should be for single payer healthcare. If someone says they're for Black Lives Matter, you should be for single payer healthcare. If you say you're for women's rights, you should be for single payer healthcare, because single payer healthcare will provide equitable healthcare that right now is not being made equitably and accessibly to our entire community. And so that's where, yes, it's great that we've taken the steps we've taken recently to increase access. I'm all for it. But I think that what we see when we do that is that we're further making the argument for single payer healthcare. So AB 1400 absolutely can and should be the vehicle to push for single payer healthcare. I went to Washington, D.C., New York, and Canada. I met with folks in D.C. We need to take legislative action, and they're waiting for it. Senator Padilla is all for it. I met with Congressmember Khanna and Katie Porter. They're all with us. I met with Health and Human Services. They're there to help support us in getting legislation that will help facilitate getting a federal waiver. So the pieces are in place. What we have to do is fight against those special interests that are profiteers that are going to put as much muscle into pushing against us as we ever seen in our lives.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Kalra. What I must do is introduce you. You have led a path for us to follow. Your name is so well known. More are jumping on board to say, yes, we have to do this. No one else must die. We must have accessibility for everyone. But let me introduce you, please, to our community for those who may not know you, which I'm sure is small. Assemblymember Ash Kalra represents California's 27th district, which encompasses approximately half of San Jose and includes all of downtown. He was first elected in 2016, becoming the first Indian American to serve in the California legislature in state history. And to paraphrase Bernie, he introduced the damn bill. It's important for us to make sure we support you. We are honored to have you here. And it's so important for us to make sure that we could build on the history that you started. What recommendations, feedback would you have to those who are watching that haven't been as politically involved, they're new to politics, and they want to talk to their legislature for the first time?
Yeah.
Their members for the first time.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll say this, look, I think we've gotten to a place where government and those in power, sometimes for those in the general public, they look up to them, they see them as inaccessible, they see them, as these powerful people. And we've flipped everything around. It should be the other way around, right? Those in power should be in awe of the people. And we've lost that. And I think I would just remind people that we are here to serve you. Your legislators are here to serve you. Your governor is here to serve you. I know it doesn't always seem like that sometimes, because all this money that comes into politics and all these fancy commercials and these big conventions and all that make it seem more distant. But the only way we're going to get something like single payer healthcare done is if you remind people like me and Miguel, the assembly members, the senators, the governor, the Congress members, you remind all of us that we work for you. When you think about it that way, I hope that makes it less intimidating for you to reach out to your legislator. I hope it brings it down to earth a little bit, because at the end of the day, we should be listening to you. Look, 85% of Democrats support single payer healthcare. The majority of Californians, including Republicans, support single payer healthcare. So you're just asking us to do what you've already told us you want us to do. And our job is to make sure we put forward a policy that works, funding mechanism that works. But ultimately, we have been hired by you. As Betty just said, that's on the chat. We've been hired by you to do a job, and it's to serve all of you. And so don't feel shy. It can be hard at times. Feel bold, be respectful. I think that it's really important. I'm someone that always speaks respectfully to my colleagues, even those that may disagree with me at times. But be honest. Be very clear on where you stand. But I think that, I like to think something Gandhi said once is that we're not trying to bring, in regards to the British, we're not trying to bring them to their knees. We're trying to bring them to their senses. And you do that by using love and justice. And at the end of the day, I think that is a much more powerful way of approaching it than fear and anger and the things that sometimes the Republicans or people that try to minimize us use. And so, yes, be assertive, not, aggressive, but I think that there's that fine line where you don't want to take a step back and be meek, because being peaceful and being for justice is not being meek. You can be peaceful and for justice and be very strong and be a warrior for justice. And so that's, kind of my advice to folks. And I actually got to catch a plane to LA in a little bit, so I got to get ready to go to the airport. But I want to thank all of you, because you are the movement. You are the people that will make this happen. We don't have much time. So use these next six to 8 weeks wisely. There's no time to rest. We have to make sure that we're talking to everybody. We're growing our movement. And when it comes to January, we let myself and all the other legislators know how important this is to all of you.
Thank you so much, Assembly Member Kalra. We know you have a flight to catch,
Yeah.
but we are here to continue to support you. And as a licensed marriage and family therapist, one of the things I'm noticing as we're trying to push this is members that have more conservative views, they understand the concept of mental health and the need.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when we're talking about healthcare, expanding on the mental health needs, because as you know, we're in a crisis right now. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and we look forward to seeing more of you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. At this time, wasn't that great? If everyone could show your appreciation in the chat or with emojis or in our reactions. This is great. We're mobilizing, we're building friendships, we're involving those who are new to politics. Thank you so much for your patience. And one thing I heard him say, it might be more helpful and beneficial not to call people out if they disagree, but let's call them in so we could figure out ways to get this bill passed and do it in a way that shows more respect. Because as we're building these coalitions, it's important for us to get more people involved. And we don't want to act like those others who are putting us at risk. At this time, do we have any more of our assembly? Yes, we have Assembly Member Santiago on. There was a question that came up from Virginia Adders Elmore, and she says, saying that this will make medical care free is misleading. Single payer is that everyone pays on a progressive manner. What percentage of income will people pay, or will people be asked to pay? If we could unmute him, please. There we go.
Well, what I meant by free is you're not going to the private market to look for healthcare. So like currently, and I just to give the example, when I meant free, I mean you go to an employer and you take out a healthcare plan with your employer and pay, I don't know, whatever it is, depending on the healthcare plan. It can be anywhere between, $100 to $500 for a healthcare plan. And what I meant by free wasn't that you go to the private marketplace or the ACA and look for a private healthcare plan. Now, certainly you're going to have to pay for it through public revenue. We argue that the expenses are already being made. So if you take a look at what people pay out of pocket, if you take a look at what the state pays out of pocket, what the feds pay out of pocket, or local healthcare coverage costs by counties or in some cases city, so the money flows already there. It's money that's already in the system. We're looking at a way to try to take this money and use it in a more effective way in establishing a single payer healthcare system that is already has the money that you're using, and people get it. That's what I meant by that in particular. Sure, I mean I understand nothing is free in this country, and predominantly anywhere we go, but it's money that's already in the system, and that's what I meant by that. Is you don't have to go to the private marketplace and get private healthcare insurance. So I hope that answers that.
Thank you so much. If you have any additional questions, please remember to send them to Ilka Weston. That's Ilka Weston, and she will give me your questions. Assemblymember Santiago, we have another question for you.
Sure.
What does it mean by taking the bureaucracy out of single payer?
Okay, so what? I mean, you mean the bureaucracy out of healthcare, right? I mean, that's what I'm assuming.
I just read the question the way it was sent to me. Sorry about that.
Okay, so the bureaucracy out of healthcare. So currently, when you take a look at the healthcare system, right? So I'll just give a hypothetical kind of example, right? But you have if you're taking a look at a private healthcare system, you have an insurance company who you pay to give you healthcare coverage, and there may be contractual agreements in that in that insurance with the employer. When you go to a doctor, if it is a doctor within network, there's still a number of layers of procedures that may be accepted or not accepted under that plan. There's different steps that you may have to take for the procedures that you want, or procedures that may be deemed ineligible according to a certain plan. There are prescriptions that need to take into place, whether you get them in-house or you get generic or you go to CVS or what have you. And so let me just take those pieces right there, not make it more complicated. But you also have, even in the prescription world, you have PBMs, which is kind of like the middle person between the pharmaceuticals and the actual pharmacy. When you take a look at the complex billing system that is inherent to the healthcare system at every single level. I mean, there's a really complex billing system that happens. That's when we're talking about bureaucracy, and there's layers and layers above that, right? So when we're taking a look at the current system that exists which is more complicated than the brushstroke that I painted, a single payer system, as we see it, would be something that somebody can go, if you have a healthcare condition, obtain health quality healthcare for that for that condition that you have without having to go through all these jungles of bureaucracy, because it's already known you're going to get healthcare coverage, and there's a direct payment from a public entity to that healthcare provider to make it more simple terms.
Thank you for that. There was mention of difficulties with someone having challenges receiving a CPAP machine. And I remember working in primary care in our rural communities with our seniors. And when the Affordable Care Act passed, there were a number of people that went through a transition with difficulties getting medications, having to change plans. So for those who may be fearful that the same thing may happen with AB 1400, what can we tell them to ensure them that this is the best direction to go into?
Sure. No, and I'm glad you asked about that. I was, when I was a little bit younger, didn't have so many wrinkles around my eyes. I remember the healthcare debate around the the ACA at the federal level, now known as Obamacare, and it was very personal. Anytime you talk about healthcare coverage, people get extremely personal, and some people get apprehensive. Obviously, we're talking about a solution where we're getting excited about it, right? But not everybody gets excited about it. The questions that they ask is, will I lose my doctor? Will I not have my prescription? Am I not going to get quality health care? Look, I think the best way to take a look at it is that there are more opportunities, because now you can go to the doctor you need to go to for the condition that you need to have. And what we're looking at is a better system that we have today, not a system that limits it. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because here's what I learned about the healthcare debate at a very high level. When Obama was trying to change the healthcare system, people were apprehensive or worried about the system he was trying to do. But they loved when it was explained to them what they would get from it. Kind of like they, even in rural Republican areas in the state of California, we looked at some polling where they hated having Obamacare, but they didn't want to get the things removed of Obamacare that was there, right? Like pre-existing condition, like a number of other things. So the way to take a look at this and to argue to people is we're trying to broaden healthcare access and make it more focused on a person, so that this whole bureaucratic mess of healthcare that leads to enormous unprecedented profits is more geared towards the well-being of a person. So the more monies are directed towards a person's well-being and being whole. So I think the simplest way to say it, and I know I'm a little bit long-winded about a simple answer, but we're trying to improve it. More health, more attention and quality healthcare towards that individual. I mean, that's simply it.
Thank you so much for that answer. And that's what it's about, accessibility. Too many people out here in the rural community. I'm in AD 71, and a number of our community members out here, they couldn't stand Obamacare, but they love the Affordable Care Act. And
it's bizarre.
It's the same thing, but it's just like some people don't like to talk about climate change, but they understand they don't want fires. So sometimes we have to do some code switching to get what we want. Thank you.
Or they want water and they don't like the heat. It's pretty amazing. Right. But look, I appreciate you letting me just jump in right now. So thank you for that. But look, here's what my experience with this debate. And I will say it's what Mr. Kalra did say is there's an immediate hesitancy on, will this work? Right? I mean, that's probably one of the arguments that come towards us that is in the more realm of legitimacy, right? An argument, I don't want to change it because this is fine, is not an argument that passes the smell test. We all agree with that. And healthcare is not fine. We need to make changes to it, radical changes, so that it actually covers people instead of looking out for the profit. But let's say for those people who are genuinely concerned that this is not going to work, and I think that is a good starting point to a debate about changing the healthcare system. So if you are meeting with some of our colleagues, or you are meeting with people in general, and they say that I don't see how this will work. Well, look, at one point in time, and I did use this, and it actually kind of helps to at least warm up people to a conversation for those who have a little bit of humor, right? Like at one point in time, people did say that you couldn't have a public transportation system. And now we have a public transportation system. was a radical idea. Now it's kind of a normal idea, right? Public transportation system, duh. At one point in time, people argued against a public education system. And look, it got started off with kinks, and we've read some, and some of us may have witnessed some horrible things as it relates to segregation, some of the things that we saw in the 60s and before that. But we got an opportunity to establish one and work on it to make it better. People argued about a retirement system that would be public, and now we have Social Security. Not perfect. That one we got to work on, obviously, but it's there. Argued about, and we can go on and on and on, right? But so when you really take a look at the argument of a progressive movement, for those who consider themselves progressive in my shoes, the progressive movement in one big way that I see it has been to give access to the very things that just a few privileged had at one time. Be it voting rights, be it healthcare, be it access to money, which is the fight against income inequality, which is give access to clean air, clean water, all these things that were just grabbed by a few privileged. And so I think for those who have humor, you can talk about that as a good entry point into a conversation, right? Now, but I think also when people say that it's not going to work, I think a good leading point and to start off with people is to say, well, look, what we have currently is not working because we have X amount of people who are not covered in that healthcare. We just went through a pandemic, and look, give us the opportunity to establish that debate to move forward to improve it. And if there are problems, we will improve it. I don't see 1 minute. I promise that was it.
Well, you could go all day, but I know the team will get upset with me.
But so I'm going to sign off and go back to being a dad. So thank you.
This is great because we're charged to have a can-do spirit. You're a visionary. This is important. So we thrive. We all want to improve the quality of our lives. So thank you so much, Assembly Member Santiago. At this time, Erika, will we be bringing you back on and have you, we need to unmute Erika, please. And have you introduced our next guest for this afternoon. This has been dynamic, and the show is yours, Erika.
Oh my gosh. So
Yes.
I was not expecting to introduce Carmen Comsti. So I don't have any information in front of me. I feel terrible, but she is with CNA. She's a lawyer. She wrote the bill. She is incredible. And that's all you need to know. Carmen, go.
Thanks, Erika. I'm so happy. I like all your words earlier this evening, and I think for everyone and PDA-CA for having this panel and inviting me here and all the assembly members. And I saw that Council Member De León just signed on too. Thank you all for being here. As some of you may know, I work on legislative and regulatory policy with the mighty California Nurses Association, the largest union of registered nurses in California, which is the proud sponsor of AB 1400. And it's been my privilege to work with Assembly Members Kalra and Lee and Santiago on AB 1400 and CalCare. And we're so appreciative of their steadfast support and leadership on single payer and AB 1400 in California. I think what Assembly Member Kalra said earlier is really important. We need to recognize that the people organizing on the ground of the single payer movement in our state, all of you who are here today, you all are essential in getting AB 1400 passed in California and making CalCare a reality. I'm proud to do my part in the fight for guaranteed health care for all by serving as a commissioner on the Healthy California for All Commission. But, to be crystal clear, all of you, all our power together, as Assembly Member Kalra said, reminding the elected officials that work for us, that all of our power together is what brings single payer to the table, and we need to keep them accountable. All of you who have been fighting for single payer in California, many for decades, like the nurses of CNA, the movement is what gives my arguments in support of CalCare strength in the commission. I'm dedicated to ensuring that we have the best policy, the best arguments in support of single payer. But I want to emphasize to all of you that policy gains its power from the people. The policy of single payer gains its power to push back against the well-heeled corporate interests and insurance interests from all of you. You know, I'm going to touch on briefly on the policy of AB 1400, but just bear in mind that each of us can and must play a role in organizing our power together to get AB 1400 moving and passed. Now, as all of you know, AB 1400, first and foremost, would guarantee universal health care to all Californians as a right, with a single standard of care for everyone, regardless of your prior health conditions, regardless of your ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status. Everyone would get a single high quality care under CalCare, a single public program that would pay for all necessary and appropriate care. In other words, a single payer for healthcare in California. And it's important, as we've touched on earlier tonight, it's important to remember that we pay less and get more by eliminating the administrative waste of our fragmented for-profit health insurance system and by reining in health industry profiteering. Study after study shows that not only would we have savings from administrative simplicity and lower prices for, not only would that savings and lower prices pay for universal coverage, but it would importantly, we could put those savings towards comprehensive benefits packages for every California residents. That is how we pay for expanding benefits to dental, vision, hearing, long-term care, mental health services, reproductive services, and so on. You know, the draft economic analysis done by the consultants for the commission, which uses very, very conservative estimates on savings and the savings potential of single payer. It shows that we could get more and pay less, but cover everyone. And we could do all of this without the middlemen health plans that skim off the top by denying care, and the kind of healthcare gatekeeping that health plans do today, the market-driven bureaucracy that Assemblymember Santiago was talking about just a little bit earlier, like narrow networks, step therapy, prior authorizations, and financial barriers to care like copays and deductibles and means testing, those would all end. And I know we don't have time to get into the weeds, but you know, I always try to emphasize that under AB 1400, we would get care that would be based on need. And what that means is that CalCare places the decisions of care back into the hands of you and your doctors, your nurses, your therapists, and other healthcare professionals by getting rid of financial payment schemes and administrative complexity that comes with insurers. Doctors and nurses would be able to spend time with you, their patients, providing care rather than billing and coding and navigating the complex web of insurance plans. The practice of medicine and nursing would no longer be hamstrung by the financial interests of plan administrators and corporate boardrooms. And finally, you know, CalCare as a single payer system would enable us collectively to address structural health inequities by moving away from a market-based approach to our healthcare system. CalCare is demanding that healthcare dollars, rather than being spent on corporate profit making and the race to the bottom, that healthcare dollars are spent on care, prevention, and targeting the structural causes of racial and socioeconomic health inequity. You know, we can't rely on healthcare corporations and insurers to do the right thing for the health of the people. And frankly, you know, the legal and financial interests of healthcare corporations and insurers are fundamentally at odds with providing healthcare for all. And, you know, with all Californians and all providers in one universal public system, we collectively could engage in more effective health planning rather than piecemeal market-based solutions. You know, through the single public program of CalCare, we can analyze and identify gaps in care in a comprehensive way targeting healthcare dollars to address health inequities in underserved communities. The low-income communities and communities of color, we would no longer be viewed as healthcare corporations view us today, as risks to their bottom lines. We could address hospital closures, healthcare deserts, rebuilding our healthcare infrastructure, and we could fund the pipeline of a culturally competent workforce of nurses, doctors, and other healthcare professionals. Working people, communities of color, we understand that our fragmented market-driven system of insurance is broken. People understand this. There's overwhelming support from low-income and underserved communities in California for single-payer healthcare. I think to cite a couple of numbers from the report on low-income community opinions on healthcare reform, which was conducted on behalf of the Healthy California for All Commission. Some numbers say that 65%, and this was earlier this year that these surveys were run, 65% of Californians with low incomes were in support of a single statewide government-run healthcare program for all California residents. 71% of Latinx respondents, 76% of African Americans, 73% of Asian Pacific Islanders, 65% of Indigenous respondents would support such a plan. And I'm proud of all the work that we've done with CNA and Assembly members Kalra and Lee and Santiago that we've done to put forward a really strong bill. And I think, before, one thing that I want to address now, though, is, what we have coming up in the next few months. And I think, for the Healthy California for All Commission meeting, we have a meeting that's coming up on Wednesday, starting at 9 a.m. And I really encourage all of you to attend and to make your support for CalCare heard. Our CalCare organizing team and I will be holding a prep meeting, like Erika said earlier, tomorrow at 5 p.m. We can grab a link so that you all can join and learn about making public comments at meetings, and learn about what we're doing as a movement to ensure that single payer and AB 1400 remain the focus of the commission. And like Assemblymember Kalra said, it's important to share your stories and to demonstrate to the commissioners how our policy discussions have a real impact on the lives of Californians. On the commission, there are some major players in our state government, both from our Health and Human Services department and other state agencies that work on healthcare related regulation, as well as state assembly and Senate chairs of their respective health committees, Assemblymember Wood and Senator Pan. They're on the commission, and it's important that they are reminded, that we on the commission are reminded that as much as our discussions about healthcare reform can be very wonky and very theoretical, that our recommendations can mean life or death for California's residents. And the commission, we're gearing up to write and deliver our final report to the governor and the legislature, which will detail our plan for achieving unified financing in California. But I need your help. We need your help to ensure that the commission's report focuses on recommending that we pass single payer legislation rather than presenting alternatives to single payer. For the past year and a half, the commission has been toying with including alternatives to single payer in our final report. Alternatives that would maintain roles for health plans and so-called intermediary gatekeepers that deny care. So more versions of insurers. That is what some commissioners want to keep in our final report. And we've also been told that we're not allowed to consider AB 1400 so as not to put the public officials that are on the commission on the spot to discuss active legislation. I personally think that this is counterproductive and a disservice to the principles of democracy. So, I keep on trying my best to talk about the policy of CalCare when I can, but I need your help to make sure that CalCare stays in our discussion. And importantly, this upcoming week, we're going to be talking about financial sustainability for unified financing and single payer, and needing a financial plan. As the assembly members have said throughout this night is one of the most important and one of the most repeated bad faith arguments that naysayers propose to stop single payer, to stop AB 1400 from moving forward in the legislature. So we're asking that the legislature treat AB 1400 like any other bill that would eventually need funding, a funding component. We want the Assembly to start the process of considering AB 1400, starting with the Assembly Health Committee. And as is done with other bills, the process of debating and developing a financing plan can begin at the same time as committees have their hearings on the bill. We know that the Assembly can walk and chew gum when it comes to policy and financing. I expect a lot from our elected officials. They can talk about policy and financing at the same time. And we're asking that the Assembly does the same thing for AB 1400. And then the Commission has a really important role to play. We're asking that the Commission develop diverse revenue generating plans on single payer healthcare. So please join the call and learn more about what you can do to help us in the Commission. As Erika said earlier, stay tuned for more statewide calls and days of action on what we're doing on the CalCare organizing side. We have just 2 months to get this bill passed in the Assembly, or two and a half plus months. So by the end of January, we need it to get past the Assembly Health Committee, the Appropriations Committee, and the Assembly floor. So, it's really important that you all are engaged. So get ready for a really short time frame where we're all going to be working really hard. And I hope to see you all out there virtually, and together we can pass AB 1400 and make CalCare a reality. Thank you all so much. I don't know who to pass it back to.
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner Comsti. And hold tight, because we would like to ask a couple of questions. I know Betty Toto has a question for you at the end, but what we're going to do is a couple more bios for you, and then we'll get to Betty's question. And believe it or not, over 90 minutes has passed. It only seemed like 15 minutes. This information is great. And thank you so much for all your questions, your comments, your guidance. And we're taking the chat seriously. Thank you for the informative posts that you have. But at this time, I'd like to give the bio of Commissioner Comsti. Commissioner Carmen Comsti, Commissioner Healthy California for All Commission, has served as a commissioner on the Healthy California for All Commission and is a lead regulatory policy specialist at the California Nurses Association and National Nurses United. She has researched, written, and drafted numerous bills. She analyzes and briefs on issues related to single-payer healthcare programs and healthcare policy. Also, please give her a round of applause, because she also wrote all the text on AB 1400. Thank you, thank you. Please, do you see all those claps and round of applause for you, Commissioner Comsti? Thank you so much. But please stand by. I'd like to introduce Los Angeles Councilmember Kevin De León, and following his introduction and discussion, we'll have about 5 minutes for questions, and you also received a standing ovation too in the comments. Los Angeles Councilmember Kevin De León, serving the 14th Los Angeles City Council District, and has served as a state assembly and state senator in Sacramento. Within his district, he has first-hand knowledge of the effects of the lack of healthcare on the underserved constituents he represents. He is currently running for mayor of Los Angeles County and has represented the people's hope for not accepting money from entities that could be confused with control of our politicians. The Honorable Kevin De León. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
very
joining
much.
us.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Kenya, very much for the very kind introduction of my person. To each and every one of you, I caught a glimpse of my good friend Miguel Santiago, and to Carmen and others here. I want to. It's an honor to be here. Let me, I'm not going to delve into the policy of single payer Medicare for all. So I think we all know it very well. I'm going to actually come at this at a different place. When I had the honor of being the leader, the president of your California State Senate, the first person of color since the founding of the Republic, 1848, if you can believe that. First person of color, youngest child, single immigrant mother with a third grade education, youngest and only one to graduate from high school, in my family. I never thought in my wildest dreams I'd ever become an elected official, let alone leader, president of your California State Senate, running against U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein, having incredible support of PDA, Progressive Democrats of America, CNA, and others, coming that close to actually defeating U.S. Senator Dianne Feinstein. And now, as a council member, winning outright in our primary, running to become the mayor of the second largest city in America, given the magnitude of the crisis, the humanitarian crisis of more than 41,000 individuals living on our streets, our sidewalks, our alleyways, in our parks, in their cars, men, women, increasingly single mothers with children. It leaves a city like LA with an indelible mark of shame. But let me come about it this way, is when Donald Trump became president of the United States of America back in 2016, speaking truth to power and using power, I moved very quickly to establish the state of California, the fifth largest economy on planet Earth, to become the first and largest state in the nation to be a sanctuary state. Right away, I was sued by then Attorney General Jeff Sessions, the Department of Justice. We went to went to a federal court, went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, where they actually ruled that we were constitutional. My law was constitutional, that we didn't have to lift a single finger or spend a single cent to be a cog in the Trump deportation machine. When Donald Trump was elected back in 2016, I spoke truth to power, and I made California the largest economy in the world to statutorily, legally dedicate itself to 100% clean, renewable energy, decarbonizing our grid. When you turn your lights on and off, the microwave oven, that coffee machine, the refrigerator, that washer and dryer, if it's not gas, if it's electric, anything that turn the light on, that powers your house, your home, your business, that is driven by electrons on the grid. So that's going to be clean energy, renewable energy, zero carbon energy, with the largest economy in the world. So what I'm getting at is that aside from the policy of Medicare for all, single payer, that in the wealthiest nation on planet Earth, that so many Californians, so many Americans, their HMO, their PPO, not Blue Cross Blue Shield, not Kaiser, not HealthNet, and I know a lot of folks have their subjective decisions, opinions on that, but it's the emergency room of a general public hospital where folks receive their medical treatment, where a woman may have an intense amount of pain in her chest, and to go in when that pain is unbearable, and go into the emergency room and only find out that she has stage 3 breast cancer, or perhaps maybe it's stage 4, and it may be too late. And the lack of access to quality healthcare, the lack of access to healthcare, preventative healthcare, especially for women of color, is so deeply profound in a state like California, in a nation like the United States of America. So when we debate single payer, when we debate the issue with regards to Medicare for all, I heard Carmen talk about how folks talk about fiduciary studies, more reports, more blue ribbon commissions, this and that, do they really want a real fiscal impact report? Or is this just sort of kind of kicking that can down the road to sort of be an obstacle? When you're in a position of power, whether it's in the state legislature, or whether it is in Congress. It is incumbent on you that you speak truth to power. And that's why when we had Senate Bill 562, which I was a co-author of, joint authored by my good friend, who is now my successor, Tony Atkins, leader of the California State Senate, first a gay woman to lead the state Senate, and Ricardo Lara, the first Latino gay man to be a constitutional officer in the state of California. I can't get into particulars of our Democratic Caucus meeting because of our own version of HIPAA, for confidentiality for my colleagues within that caucus. But I can tell you this: there were no votes for the Senate Bill 562. There were no votes to get that vote off the floor. And I came in and we debated the issue, and we talked about why this is critical, why this is important, why we have to move heaven and earth to make sure that we can get single payer in the 5th largest economy in the world. Why, as we move SB 100, 100% clean renewable energy, that irrespective of what Washington, D.C. does with a Republican or Democratic administration, that this will be an example of what a subnational government does. It influences and motivates other subnational governments, whether it be Arizona, Nevada, Minnesota, Oregon, Washington, to moving and decarbonizing their grid. So we moved heaven and earth, and we flexed and used our political power to make sure that we could get that measure off the Senate floor. And there was for those who remember, there was a big, robust, polarizing, polemic, debate, discussion, argument, on the Senate floor, the red carpet, why we should kill the bill, why it was fiscally irresponsible of us to do this, why, it was backwards, why this was so-called socialism, communism, going back to the Soviet Empire, blah, 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 blah. All the arguments in opposition to Medicare for all, single payer. And the very idea that a bill has to be cooked, and what I mean cooked, has to be perfect, has to be just, all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted, always astounded me, because measures are always negotiated. Measures go to so many iterations, so many amendments, late night negotiations. This is what it is. It's like being part of a soccer team, and you're losing 2-0, and halftime comes up, and then the second half starts, and then they say, well, we lost 2-0, we're losing 2-0, we quit, it's over, it's done. Well, what are you talking, Coach? We got 45 minutes left. We got this whole second half. We got the whole second half left. We got 45 minutes left in the game. We can score a goal and score another goal, tie it up. Maybe we get a third goal and we win. And we used all of our muscle, and we leaned in to get that measure, single payer, off the California State Senate floor. That in itself was historic, getting that off the floor of a bicameral body into the assembly. And then the assembly, as we know, and Carmen knows well, and everybody knows, and I won't cast any aspersions on my former colleagues, on the assembly side. That's obviously where, it went down under. Point I want to make is we understand the policy, and we understand that the exemptions that we need from a federal administration, from the President of the United States, we understand that. But that's why we lean in. We understand that because that's why we speak truth to power. We understand that because that's why it is a policy now that is being debated now. What was once viewed as being perceived as some socialist idea, now we realize, it's democratizing access, to healthcare for all individuals, regardless of who you are, and where you come from, regardless of the color of your skin, which God you pray to, and who you love. And yes, your legal status. I heard, Kenya, and you were talking about the Obamacare and ACA, and one of the most pernicious things come out of the Obamacare or ACA, whichever one you want to use, was when undocumented immigrants were prohibited from paying into the exchange. In other words, not asking for subsidies from the federal government or state government, but they themselves, as the backbone of our economy, they themselves will put money into the exchange, into the pot, and participate in exchange to draw down healthcare. That with a Democratic president, a Democratic Congress, and a Democratic US Senate, and with the quest and hope to secure Republican votes, therefore being a bipartisan Obamacare, ACA, whatever you want to call it, that not one single Republican voted for him. In fact, we were negotiating against our own interests at the end of the day. And that's why single payer and Medicare for all, is so critical, for our state and for our country. As California goes, so does the entire nation. So if anything right now, when we have a Democratic president, a Democratic House, a Democratic US Senate, we should be speaking truth to power. Our members of Congress should be on the record, raising their voices to move forward this policy. Our legislature, I know my good friend up in the Bay Area, in San Jose, is moving this measure. Kalra is moving this measure. I've come out publicly in support of him, but this is when we all come together collectively. Policy, fiscal impacts, those are things that we work out together in terms of, of moving measures. But using power is what we need to do. When I moved, 100% clean renewable energy, quite frankly, the Republicans were inconsequential to that vote, because in terms of math, they had no influence on the measure. So with the makeup of our legislature right now, with not majorities, but super majorities, we should be at this moment speaking, truth to power, and moving forward this measure so we can continue discussing it and eventually landing it on the governor's desk, so we can have a single payer. I know we have to go through several hoops in Washington, D.C. To eventually make this happen, but this could be a model for the rest of the nation. So I just thank you, Kenya, and everyone else who have given me an opportunity to speak. I won't speak any longer, because you have folks like Carmen and others who can really delve into the arcane complexities of healthcare policy much better than I can. But at the very least, I'm very proud to have moved the measure farther than it's ever been moved, at least in our state of California, off actually a bicameral body, at least half of a bicameral body out of the Senate, from the Rules Committee to the Health Committee, to the Appropriations Committee, to an actual full, robust debate, discussion on the Senate floor, out of the Senate floor, to the other side of the House. Unfortunately, it didn't make it farther from there, but this is why we come together to move the measures that are critical for all Californians and all Americans. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilmember De León. And as you said, we have a supermajority here. We have to get this passed. We deserve the best. And when you speak truth to power, you can't go wrong. It's important for us to make sure we all do this. I want to bring on Betty Toto, who will be our last speaker. I hope you don't mind, but with all this rich information, we've gone over time a little bit, but she will close us out with a call to action. If we can unmute her, please.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Kenya. Appreciate it. Yes, just like it, we do have supermajorities. And as you all know, our Democratic county central committees around the state have endorsed AB 1400 CalCare. And also our California Dem Party has for a long time had single payer Medicare for all as a principle on its platform. And CalCare is the bill that will realize that principle once it is passed and implemented. However, time is ticking and we must take action to support the passage of this legislation, especially in this time of pandemic. AB 1400 CalCare will be reintroduced in early January, and it needs to be voted up and through the assembly to be sustained. So we are tick tock. We need to do the work. And so many people put their actions and ways for you to participate in the chat, as well as I have. Well, in order to influence our legislators, and initiatives being rolled out called the CalCare Solidarity Project, and it is a photo pledge petition. The concept and the tool for you is for you to sign up and for you to sign others up. And it can be accessed at www.singlemindedforsinglepayer.com. This is a tool that grassroots activists have initiated for anyone to use in order to promote single payer, in order to promote AB 1400 solidarity, CalCare solidarity. I believe I dropped the link several times, and we'll do it again. But you can go to Single Minded for Single Payer in order to take a look at that tool and to put your selfie on it. Your photo and the accompanying support statement asking legislators to vote yes, co-author, and prioritize AB 1400 CalCare will be presented to legislators once a significant amount of photo pledge petitions are submitted. Our legislators will actually be able to see their constituents' faces who support AB 1400. They will see the humanity that CalCare represents. Eventually, we hope to compile all photos and statements to present to the governor as well. I'm putting a first deadline for participation on as December 5th, as most legislative visits will happen between 11/29 and December 23rd. We want to give district leaders this for CalCare this compelling info to bring to their legislative visits, and need this time to do so. So please participate, ask others to participate. Let's get these photos and statements to our legislators, so to our district leaders for CalCare, so they could present at their legislative visits. I believe it's going to be a powerful tool and a powerful way to get behind CalCare. And I recommend if you want, sign up your political action groups, social justice groups, your Dem clubs for a demonstration of the app and for more information about CalCare, so you can get more support. Again, it's www.singlemindedforsinglepayer.com. And please put your selfie and or favorite photo on it. It's the CalCare Solidarity Project. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so. You too. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us that information. And thank you to all of our speakers today, all of those who attended, all of those who will be watching afterwards. We have a lot of work to do, but as you know, we are passionate, we are powerful, phenomenal progressives that continue to move forward. So this is just the start of so much more. I want to thank Michael Thaller, Alan Minsky, Erika Feresten, Assemblymember Ash Kalra, Assemblymember Alex Lee, Assemblymember Miguel Santiago, Commissioner Carmen Comsti, Councilmember Kevin De León, as well as Betty Toto for everything. Also, our panel, you're dynamic. We have some wonderful people we also must thank that helped put on this program. We have Ilka Weston, David Wright, in addition to so many others that did work behind the scenes to make sure we get AB 1400 passed. Thank you to everyone. Please feel free to look at the chat before you go. The best is yet to come. And thank you and good night.
We're not quite done yet, Kenya.
We're not quite done yet, but
Yeah,
we'll turn it over.
I'm going to yield to Alan first, and then I have one point of information to close with.
Thank you so much.
So Alan, you can go ahead.
There we go. Hello. Hey, yeah, I actually just wanted to acknowledge somebody who's with us. If he's still here, Chuck Pinocchio. He's the head of an organization. I know this One Payer States study of AB 1400 was mentioned in the chat. He's the president of One Payer States, which is a national coalition that supports single payer to move through the states. And so if it's okay, David, could maybe just Chuck just say a quick hi and And just a point of solidarity with a national organization committed to lifting single payer arriving through the states. Hey, Chuck, and just an incredible ally to all of us. And you know, when all of us at the national level get so focused on getting an extra congressperson so that we have half of the Democratic caucus, which is incredibly important work. It definitely lifts the need for Medicare for all around the country and an awareness. Chuck, in many respects, has just been a constant voice of reason, making the point that states like California have an easier, certainly political line towards achieving this incredible end that we all seek. So Chuck, that's all I wanted to say, and thank everybody. Great job.
Thanks so much, Alan. Yeah, I mean, one payer states has been around for 12 years, and we're dedicated to achieving the pathway that Canada did, which is through Saskatchewan, which is the pathway that we're talking about here with California, which is modeling a province or a state to show exactly what single payer can achieve at the national level. So we've got a national organization of 25 states who are working closely with PDA, who are working closely with our friends in California. And I mean, my roots are in California. I went to high school in San Diego and college in Santa Barbara and Berkeley. So it's all about California right now. Tonight is AB 1400. You have a lot of great friends to the north in Oregon and Washington. We have a lot of great movement out in Maine and New Hampshire, in New York and Minnesota. So we're in a great position of movement at the state level. So thank you so much, Kenya. You've done a wonderful job tonight. Alan, the assembly members, I'm so excited because of my California roots and just to share the good news with everybody across the country. We're in solidarity with all of you. Thank you so much. Love you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Pinocchio. Just real quick, Mike Thaller put it in the chat, but there is a way to save the chat because there's lots of great links in there. At the bottom of your chat, there's 3 little dots, and if you click on them, it allows you to save chat. So that's a great place to save the chat. It'll put the whole chat in your in a little file in your computer, and you can go back at your leisure and you can start clicking on those links and sending letters and sending messages and signing up with Betty Toto and Healthcare for LA and CalCares. We have lots of allies here, and you know, together we are more. So please remember that. And then reach out, talk to your neighbors, knock on doors, and share with your neighbors the opportunity to help save lives of all our neighbors. I want to thank everybody on this team. I'm going to pass it over to Ilka so she can do the final thank yous. And I wish everybody a good evening and thank you for attending our meeting.
Fun to unmute yourself. You know, I did not expect it to be handed over to me. You know, I do want to reach out and thank everybody. There were so many moving components to this entire event. We were very fortunate to have Commissioner Carmen Comsti join us. She is amazing with what she's accomplished. And the one thing that touched me about her when I spoke with her on the phone is she wants to know the story. She's really here because she cares. She's not here because it's what she was assigned to do. She really cares about each individual. And I find that utterly amazing. And Erika and her amazing excitement. Erika and I've already planned 3 more events. So Mike Thaller and David Wright, get ready because and Alan Minsky, we're already excited about some more events. Carmen, we will be calling. And all the people that work directly with the assembly members, as well as our city council member, and getting those wonderful people to come here and talk because they have had an experience with this in order to help make this happen, or even when it didn't happen before and what we needed to do differently. Betty Toto, she jumped on at the last moment. And I got to tell you, total props to grassroots marketing. I think you're doing a little bit more than that. So I'm really excited what we can do in the future. Thank you so much about caring about everybody as a whole. David Wright and Mike Thaller have been amazing mentors putting this event together. There's been a lot of moving pieces. We are really excited and we don't want to just stop right here. But what I found even more amazing was Kenya Thaller stepped into this wonderful event that had all these changing components, and with grace and knowledge and, you know, actually having worked in the field in this way and knowing what is needed, that I just felt really honored to hear her speak. I'm always in awe of her. She knows that. So, you know, I really, everybody here, this is not the last event. I could tell you that one of the next events we're trying to think about is how to get the conservatives to understand, right, Erika? Wasn't that the plan? We're going to get the people who say no to say yes. So we have some great plans. And Alan Minsky, thank you so much as well. You have just been so amazing. So everybody, thank you for coming. Mike Thaller, do you have anything you'd like to say? I can unmute you.
Yeah, there we go. I'm unmuted. Believe me, I can unmute myself. I just want to say thank you, everybody, especially those of you who were the speakers, but along with those of you who joined the meeting. And don't be surprised if all of you don't hear from us, because we're going to send you some follow-up information. On that, I think we should wrap for the evening. Kenya?
Okay.
This was amazing. This is a great way to start off the week. Thank you so much for providing this space for us to learn so much, to build on the great work that's already been started. We look forward to your questions and comments. Also, please don't forget to press the 3 buttons at the bottom of your screen to save the chat, and we will be in touch very soon. Thank you all again for participating. And we wish you a marvelous Monday, a phenomenal week, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.